and the gentlemen's singles champion for 2025 from Italy, Jannik Sinner.
Sinner barely finished spraying champagne across the Wimbledon locker room when his phone buzzed with a name he'd sworn never to see again: Ferrara. 9 months earlier, a single mist of Ferrara's clostebol-laced spray torpedoed Jannik Sinner's season and branded him tennis's fallen angel. Now, fresh off the biggest win of his life, the new world #1 was inviting the very man who almost ruined him back into his inner circle. No apologies, no explanations, just a 6-minute call and a handshake that set the tennis world on fire. Why gamble everything on the architect of your near collapse? Stick around, because the answer might blur the line between unbreakable loyalty and reckless ambition. Indian Wells, March 14, 2024. Sun sinking behind the desert palms, routine drug test, nothing to see. Then the lab email hit like a thunderclap. Clostebol detected, twice. Within hours, Spraygate trended worldwide. Jannik Sinner, heir apparent to the tennis throne, was suddenly the sport's most controversial name. The smoking gun? A harmless-looking can of Trophedermin, the cut treatment spray physio Giacomo Naldi kept in his kit. Naldi swore he used it only on his own split knuckle, but traces lingered on his hands during a post-practice massage. Conditioning coach Ferrara had recommended the spray weeks earlier. No one thought to warn the anti-doping lab. One careless mist, one sweaty shoulder rub, and a banned anabolic slipped into Sinner's bloodstream. Sponsors froze bonuses before the ink dried on the test report. Italian tabloids howled, "From golden boy to chemical toy." WADA appealed the initial no-fault ruling, insisting someone had to pay. Sinner faced cameras with eyes like frosted glass, repeating the phrase that would haunt him for months: "I just need clean air." Keyboard warriors carved up blame: Ferrara for the suggestion, Naldi for the negligence, Sinner for the company he kept. Meanwhile, Reddit memers went to war, photoshopping Trojan horse spray cans and casting Sinner as a tragic Greek hero undone by hubris. The verdict arrived weeks later, a reduced 3-month suspension. Light on paper, brutal in reality. Ranking points stalled, prize money vaporized, and doubts dug trenches in the public mind. The message was unmistakable. In a sport obsessed with purity, even an accidental whiff of contamination can ignite a firestorm that scorches everything in its path. On May 1st, 2025, the official letter arrived with the cold finality of a court summons. Suspended, 90 days, no appeal. For the next 3 months, Jannik Sinner's world would shrink to the echo of his own footsteps. Ranking points froze, appearance fees evaporated, and every click of a shutter felt like a guilty verdict. Monte Carlo's sun-bleached luxury turned into a gilded cage where the clocks all ticked too loudly. So he built a routine brutal enough to drown out thought. 5 a.m., plunge into the Mediterranean, carving sprint laps through water that slashed his skin awake. 7 a.m., hill repeats on the serpentine roads above Cap d'Aille, heart pounding in his ears like a war drum. By noon, he'd retreat to an underground lab where sports scientists drew vials, charted lactate thresholds, and taped printouts of his dwindling ranking beside the treadmill display. They called the program Project Red Phoenix. He called it penance. Evenings were quieter and harder. Alone in a high-rise apartment, he replayed Alcaraz's Roland Garros roars, Djokovic's silk thread angles, the jeers that followed Spraygate. He dissected each in silence, a chessboard and a performance psychologist his only companions. In the monotony of exile, doubts crept in like sea mist. Was the climb back even possible? Would sponsors stay if the spotlight dimmed? Every midnight hill sprint ended with the same ritual: palms on knees, lungs in flames, whispering the mantra he'd later carry to center court: clean air. And with each repetition, the band felt less like punishment and more like preparation. Because when the locks finally clicked open on August 1st, the man who stepped out wasn't the fallen angel the headlines had painted. He was a hardened version forged in solitude, hungry to reclaim everything that had slipped through his fingers. Freedom tasted like salt and asphalt. At 5 a.m. sharp, Sinner was already carving switchbacks above the Ligurian coast, lungs dragging in the dawn while gulls wheeled overhead. Beside him, conditioning sage Marco Panici, fresh from Novak Djokovic's camp, clocked split times, barking micro-corrections on stride length. Physio Ulysses Battiato waited at the summit with wireless lactate meters and an ice barrel so cold it could numb regrets. They called the overhaul Project Red Phoenix, a bio-tracking regimen as ruthless as it was precise. Heart rate variability logged every 90 minutes, glucose spikes charted against serotonin dips, even REM cycles mined for clues. The goal wasn't just fitness, it was metabolic reinvention. For 11 relentless weeks, the trio stitched new muscle onto old bone, trimming milliseconds like rogue threads. Yet perfection breeds friction. Panici's high-volume circuits clashed with Sinner's love of explosive bursts. Battiato's isometric marathons left wrists aching. On the eve of Wimbledon, their departure was announced in a one-line press release. No drama, just the quiet hiss of a scalpel finishing its cut. The machine, it seemed, would have to run without the engineers who built it. On July 13th, 2025, center court hummed like a live wire, every eye fixed on two prodigies locked in the present, yet tilting the sport toward its future. For 4 gritty sets, Carlos Alcaraz threw lightning, but Jannik Sinner answered with thunder. Down a set, the Italian reset his stance, shortened his follow-through, and began bending physics. Forehands that kissed the baseline, backhands knifed up the line, returned so early they seemed teleported. At 6-4, 6-4, 6-4, the final ace fizzed past Alcaraz's reach, and history clicked into place. Sinner's first Wimbledon crown, wrestled from a 2-time champion who'd looked unbeatable all fortnight. As the roar crashed over the grass, Sinner sank to one knee, fingertips grazing the turf he'd once only dreamt of conquering. He glanced skyward, lips forming those 2 reclaimed words, clean air. Cameras captured the moment in crystalline slow motion. A phoenix red jacket draped over his shoulders, a trophy glinting in the London twilight, and a grin that said, exile was over. The exile may have forged him, but center court had blessed the new king, one who now eyed the hard court summer with a champion's hunger and a survivor's edge. Less than a month after lifting the Wimbledon trophy, Jannik Sinner made another headline-snatching move. He rehired Umberto Ferrara, the fitness guru whose clostebol-tainted spray had once dragged him into a doping nightmare. The announcement landed via press release on the 23 July, 2025, framing the reunion as a continuity play designed to steady preparations for the Cincinnati Masters and the US Open. Ferrara, for his part, rushed to Italian TV to defend his reputation. He acknowledged recommending the Torpedoed spray, but claimed he had explicitly warned physiotherapist Giacomo Naldi never to let it touch Sinner. I was very clear about the product and the need for him to avoid any contact with Jannik, the trainer insisted. In one stroke, Sinner reclaimed the architect of his physical peak and reignited the debate over whether trust or risk now fuels his quest for domination on hard courts. The moment news of Ferrara's comeback hit the wires, the player lounge turned into a fault line. On one side stood voices like Novak Djokovic and Nick Kyrgios, who blasted the 3-month ban as convenient and proof that fairness in tennis doesn't exist. Djokovic warned that most pros see favoritism for the bigger names, while Kyrgios called the sanction a slap on the wrist. Yet not everyone wanted a public hanging. Several top 20 players, Daniil Medvedev among them, kept their distance but quietly acknowledged that Sinner had owned the mistake and served his time. Sinner himself admitted the locker room vibe at last year's US Open was a bit frosty, yet insisted private conversations had been respectful once he explained the details. Outside the velvet-roped players area, the internet did what it does best: memes. Reddit's Artenis filled with photoshops of Torpedoed spray cans disguised as Trojan horses, captions barking, "Watch out for Greeks," and physios bearing gifts. The thread racked thousands of upvotes in hours, turning the once obscure steroid cream into the sport's newest punchline. The split verdict is clear. To some peers, Sinner's lenient ban still smells of privilege. To others, his transparency has earned a begrudging second chance. Either way, every taped ankle and trainer's towel will be under a microscope when the tour reconvenes in Cincinnati. At Roland Garros on 8 June 2025, Carlos Alcaraz clawed back from 2 sets down, erased 3 championship points, and outlasted Jannik Sinner in 5 hours 29 minutes, the longest French Open final ever recorded. Fans and reporters left court, Philippe Chatrier, certain they had witnessed a match that will forever be in the discussion for the greatest of all time. Barely 5 weeks later, center court became the stage for Sinner's revenge. On 13 July 2025, the 23-year-old Italian muted a partisan crowd and dethroned the 2-time champion 4-6, 6-4, 6-4, 6-4 to seize his maiden Wimbledon crown, slamming the door on Alcaraz's perfect record in major finals. The back-to-back epics have veterans reaching for new metaphors. Former US Open champion Dominic Thiem, no stranger to slugfests with the Big Three, called their speed, precision, and error-free aggression a level beyond what we were used to. Thoughtful, almost another dimension. He joked that it looks like Chuckle's space-age tennis. 2 Grand Slam finals, 1 apiece, and a combined 9 majors before either man's 25th birthday. The Sinner-Alcaraz axis isn't just the next rivalry, it's a hard reboot for the sport, pushing the baseline of human possibility further than even the Big Three era dared imagine. With Wimbledon's confetti still clinging to his sneakers, Jannik Sinner shifts focus to the hardcourt crucible. Title defense in Cincinnati, then a bid to repeat at the US Open. Every drill is now public property. Fans tune in by the thousands to watch live-streamed hill sprints and baseline suicides from Monte Carlo practice courts, dissecting frame by frame whether the new old coach Umberto Ferrara has tweaked his footwork or his diet. But the margin for error is a hair's breadth. Analysts warn that a single stumble, be it a shock loss or another support team misstep, could let Carlos Alcaraz steal the year-end #1 that Sinner has guarded since Wimbledon. The liver race shows the Spaniard lurking within striking distance, hungrier than ever after his Roland Garros triumph. So the equation is stark. Perfect execution or hand the throne to your fiercest rival under the bright lights of Arthur Ashe Stadium. In a summer where every rep is live-streamed and every breath analyzed, Sinner is playing for history, and he knows there's absolutely zero margin for anything less than flawless. History loves absolutes, heroes in bronze, villains in footnotes, but Jannik Sinner's story refuses to sit still. He's the phoenix who rose from a doping cloud, the tactician who outdueled Alcaraz on grass, and now the gambler who rehired the man tied to his darkest hour. If he storms through Cincinnati and Arthur Ashe, the narrative crystallizes, a champion so sure of his path he could walk through fire twice and emerge unscarred. Yet every ice bath, every supplement bottle, every handshake with Umberto Ferrara is now a live grenade in the public eye. One misstep and the tale rewrites itself into tragic irony, a king undone by the very loyalty that fueled his ascent. So the question hangs in the humid New York night. Has Sinner just carved his legacy in marble, or has he lit the fuse on his own downfall? The answer, like the thin white line that separates chalk from dust on a baseline, will be decided in the blink of a ball toss, and the world will be watching.